One of the reasons why Mercy Hospital had it in for me is to Seattle is because I don't see myself as the villain of my own story the way they do. I'd like to explain the reason why they are the villain of my story for their attitude about me. I'll start with an anecdote from my resume. There was a fella, a big fella, he was in the billionaire class or something, multimillionaire class. He fancied himself a philosophy fellow. And he showed up while I was at Pitt News rocking against Reagan. He put up a little note he needed an office assistant. Although he criticized me for my personal grooming, he was not the sort of person to get combative towards the help. He liked conversation and he was very thoughtful. And towards the end of his term, he invited me and some of my acquaintances over to his house for dinner to discuss our point of view. He was very conservative. He was in manufacturing of plastic explosives. And he asked, what would you do if you were going to save the world with the resources of the government? And I indicated that I thought that investment in water infrastructure so that the world had clean water, safe water, internationally would be an investment in the people of the world and harmony between the countries of the world. And he heard us one after another. And in the end, he said, well, God bless America. We live in a country where we respect one another's opinions. But your ideas are a money pump, and we're going to go with my ideas, his ideas, which were to continue manufacturing plastic explosives. I got an A- in philosophy after I learned sign language and went back to school. The professor said my mind veered around a little bit. Well, I sort of lost some of my taste for philosophy from all of that. There are other issues that stand between me. I was asked by a psychologist recently, do I have any peers? And I asked that of the senior center, and they got very dark and quiet. Apparently, I don't have any peers, for reasons known best to the so-called peers that I once did have. I probably never did have any. That doesn't mean I'm peerless. It means I'm isolated, drummed out, because I'm deaf, and they cover it for all, as saying it was other reasons. I was tortured by a gang who claimed to be from Amnesty International in the name of John Lennon, for heaven's sakes. Now have Parkinson's. And I was recently poisoned, apparently, in the eyes. Me, a deaf man. The police in Tacoma must be hardwired into the military services of the Vietnam era to be so hateful towards somebody like me. And Donald Trump probably has his wizard eye on his Zen for God law. You know, how can you get past Pope Carl's admission the persona is subjected to successive degradations, meaning they were firing women at me. The person who indoctrinated me after severe beatings, who's responsible for Jaime Carbonell's carrot tape in terms of its origin, was a friend of Braunstein named Donald. They were always using these names, Ronnie and Casper, Jimmy C. And they apparently were representing the will of the first executive. Bush never complained about how it was being used. Peter Gabriel never complained. If you look at my resume, you see somebody who was colloquially inclined to discuss the issues in favor of human development in the general benevolent genre, funding for education, health, welfare, emphasizing peaceful offerings in foreign policy, ways of educating women about sustainable family growth through social services, understanding poverty, expanding the influence of the global village as understood by the United Nations and the Geneva Convention. And peers lashed out at me. And he invented dossiers at Harvard, at Yale, while they subjected the persona to the successive degradations of the ex-voter. Meaning they said, go and seduce him and make him, and then reject him and make him cry because we're going to make an example of him. And they lured me to Mount Desert Island where they put on their psychotic guerrilla theater presentation to justify the AIDS attack and then told a fable about it. They were busy whisper campaigning, and they had developed this whisper campaign from the time they deafened me. Donald broke my sister's ribs. My sister, of all of them, knew better than any of them how serious it was that I continued to be stalked by Kasparowski. None of them took that seriously at all, except that King Crimson advocated for him as the superior man who Midori Goto favored. A sick and disgusting backstab from Martin Scorsese and Yoko Ono. And people trust their take on Gaza. How can anybody trust Roger Waters' take on Gaza after he covered for what happened on Mount Desert Island in 1988? It was his attorney who lied about it. You know, sometimes people don't like the word lie. People say that they cover up for Israeli lies. And if you're in the loop of actual knowledge about what happened in Gaza, you know that that's to be true. But when you see the media say, oh, the Israelis believe they made a mistake. People have criticized Israel because they believe that Israel misrepresented the truth. Amanda Harcourt lied about Mount Desert Island. Do you understand what I'm saying? She lied about it for Roger Waters.